Hi, good morning, afternoon, evening. Welcome from wherever you're joining from. Thank you for joining this panel, this breakout session. My name is Vincent Miron. I use he, him pronouns, and this panel is on Generation Z and their perspectives and expectations. So again, my name is Vincent Miron. I am from Invesco Ltd. I am the executive assistant to the Senior Managing Director and Head of Americas for North America specifically, and I reside in Atlanta, Georgia, so in the United States. And so I am excited to host this panel as a millennial myself, and to hopefully learn a little bit from the Gen Zers here. So I think with that, actually, I'll pass it over to the two of you. Sri, if you'd like to start with just maybe a little introduction.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Vincent. My name is Sreelakshmi. I am joining from Mumbai. I currently work with Markets and Markets as Research Associate. I am an out-and-out bisexual woman. So I have done my undergrad and post-graduation already. And during my post-graduation, I was part of my campus, 𝘗𝘵𝗻𝘏 campus's gender and sexuality cell. That was my gateway to helping the community and being a solid part of the community, I can say. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the whole conversation about Gen Z and our perspectives.
Wonderful, thank you. And Shaina?
Okay, hi. First of all, thank you for having me. And this is an amazing opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be here with the both of you. I'm Shaina Shingari, and I'm 14 years old. I reside in Delhi, where I'm a student in the 10th grade at Tagore International School. So there are like two branches, east of Kailash and Vasant Vihar, and I'm in the Vasant Vihar one. I've been a proactive ally, not only for the LGBT plus community, but also for the physically and mentally challenged, like the 𝘈𝘢𝘴𝘪𝘢𝘅 or like the ones who are like disabled. So for them for almost a year now. And irrespective of the fact that I have a small platform, my goal is to contribute in any way I can and create safe spaces in the society. And yeah, that's about it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I would say your platform is exponentially increasing right now with this panel. So that's amazing. You're doing amazing work.
Thank you.
So great. You know, this panel is about Gen Z. I had to do a little research to learn myself about this generation, and so really just sort of getting into it and talking about who they are. This is a demographic of folks who are ages 10 to 24 right now. There are, in the United States, about 25% of our population, and globally sitting at about 30% or 2 billion folks. So a large majority of our population, and this is slated to be the most diverse generation in history. So I think there's a lot of significance behind how this group of folks starts to engage with the world on a much broader and more diverse scale. They are also the first fully global generation. So thinking about that and what that means, you know, you all grew up and had internet and social media, and you've had sort of access to information about what's going on across the globe at your fingertips from day one. And so that's a really unique perspective to have. And I'm curious to see how that's influenced you all as well. And by 2025, sort of looking at the workforce here, there's estimated to be about 25% of the population as Gen Z, of the workforce population, excuse me, as Gen Z. So that's a quarter of the workforce population, and will be the largest generation that we've seen so far. So what do companies and employers expect to experience? You know, from what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, you know, companies are going to need to highlight their efforts at being good global citizens. Even just listening to what the two of you have done so far in your lives, I think that is going to be a driving force for what firms need to do in terms of retaining and attracting talent. So looking beyond diversity as just race or gender, but identity and orientation. So yeah, I mean, that's what I've learned about Gen Z so far, but this conversation is really about perspectives, right? So I'd love to get yours. And Sri, if it's all right, I'd love to start with you and just sort of hear a bit more about your journey, your background, and maybe what it's been like navigating your college experience as an openly bisexual woman.
Okay, so my journey basically started when I was doing my undergraduation. That is when I started questioning my sexuality, because that was a time when a lot of, like you said, our generation is something that we have been used to the internet. So that was a time when we were getting used to the shows and all of that, all of those things where, there were talks about the community, even though it was very less and often misrepresented. But there was a conversation going on, especially from Western shows. There was a conversation going on about the community, things that we were not taught as kids. We were not exposed to those things as kids. So when we started getting exposed to these shows and all, and the conversation about the community, I think I started questioning myself, and I realized that there are opportunities, those alternatives exist. It's not what we have been taught. It's not what we have been thinking. There are these alternatives that exist, and that is when I realized that maybe what I have, somewhere I already knew, but I think that kind of exposure to the information that you get with our generation, and at that time of at that time of point of time, I think I realized that there is there's something else that I need to understand. And once I got once that things got stuck in my head, I started reading about it and listening to things, seeing things. So that's how I realized that okay, fine, maybe I'm not straight. At that time I did not know what I was. It took me like a year or so, and I think I personally was lucky to have a circle of friends or the people that I met or talked to who was supportive about the fact that I was questioning or I had doubts, or to help me on my journey. So that is how I realized that that my sexual orientation is bisexual person, bisexual woman. And yeah, and when you talk about college, my undergrad college was not a very accepting or a very open, was not a very open campus about this topic. So I never saw a conversation about this, even though it was in the hub of a big city in one of the big cities in our country, a big college, a big name. But then there was no topic, no conversation about this topic at all. Nobody was aware of anything. I was lucky that my friend circle were open and strong allies of it. But of the in my friend circle, I saw no representation or no conversation of that sort. But after that, once I joined my post graduation in BITS, I think that is where I realized that how campuses can be. Because that's when I started, I started working with Anchor, and we realized that okay, there are colleges, that help students, if not proactively. At that time, it was not that proactive, majorly because in our country it was a criminal. Being homosexual was criminalized up till a couple of years ago. So that was one of the major driving forces of that. But once it was, pulled down, I think the conversation started flowing much more easily and all of that. So yeah, that has been my journey, and now I think as part of Anchor, I am trying to help students who come to our campus, or not, even if nurturing them as allies. I think yeah, so that is where I am now.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about having this circle of support and this circle of friends, and I think that is something that as time progresses here, and especially with younger generations, it tends to be a bit easier to find that. And I don't know, I would love to hear your thoughts about that specifically, of if you're noticing that sort of change in support based on sort of, we'll say, generational support, right? So a younger group of folks being more inclusive and being easier to find, sort of more open or like-minded folks.
Yeah, I think so, because it's like already mentioned that we have so much information out there now, people, to kids and the Gen Z population, or even the younger part of the Gen Z population. There is so much content out there that they can see. It's hard to miss that this kind of the conversation about LGBTQ community is happening. It's very hard to miss now at this point of time. Every young kid, even if they don't understand it properly, they have that information on their tips.
There's that exposure to it, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. You open the you switch on your TV, it's just bound to come across that. Even if they're not completely understanding what's happening, at least they have that exposure, which is a lot more than what we had as kids, right? We realize that there are things like that happening, or it's perfectly normal to be like that. What, after you were 16 or 17, probably.
Yeah,
even later than that. And now kids are like Shaina and all, they're very lucky to have the fact that they are being exposed to it from an early time. And that I think is very helpful for the fact that, to have a much more accepting circle of people around you.
Yep. The representation absolutely matters, and so when you start seeing more of it, I think you are able to change minds and perspectives a bit more there. So yeah, thank you. And again, speaking about perspectives, Shaina, in terms of your experience in being an ally, I know you touched a bit on the work you've been doing, but what has that journey been a bit more? Could you just elaborate a bit more about it?
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to tell what, according to me, like what my definition of an ally is, and that is being available as a human being. So my journey started when I joined the Breaking Barriers campaign at my school. It's a student-driven campaign. So it was started in 2013 by 2 students, and it's a human rights initiative which aims at sensitizing the youth about human rights and spreading awareness on various topics like gender and sexuality, like gender orientation and everything. So according to me, my campaign is the reason how my I got into, like, I wanted to be an ally, or I was driven to like create or cause a change or create an impact. So me and other like-minded individuals, we finally had a platform when I enrolled in the 21 Days Ally Challenge, because when I was in my campaign, we just used to like self-educate ourselves, or like the students in my school, or in fact my campaign, like the Breaking Barriers campaign, we conduct gender sensitization workshops in different schools and colleges and workplaces. So I was exposed to the partnership with Pride Circle, and when I enrolled myself in the 21 Days Ally Challenge, that is when I finally had a platform, to showcase my support and efforts towards inclusion. And the challenge, and as well as the campaign, opened up my thoughts on various aspects of gender identities and giving me a broader approach towards life and society. So it was not just male or female anymore, but I understood that, and I understood and respected every individual, irrespective of their gender or sex. And being an ally is, according to me, it's about making conscious choices. So it's always about learning and teaching others what you learn. And many people used to ask me this, that okay, you helped to create awareness, so is it over? So no, allyship is not something you achieve in a day, but it's a journey of a lifetime, which one builds by respecting every individual for who they are and how they identify as. So the main onus, it's on my school. For the ally which I am today, it's all because of the exposure, as she said, that being a part of the Gen Z, we have more exposure and more facilities at hand. So we have more knowledge, overall.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it sounds like you've had support from your circle of friends and from folks that you've found. Were there any sort of expectations, like as you went along this journey, of what allyship really meant? So you talked a little bit about "is it over," which is funny that you bring that up. I think that is, with any movement, you get to a certain point, right? And you hit a milestone, and the response is great. So we're done now. And I think that's a really astute observation, that it's not over. It's a continuous journey. And I guess it would be interesting to hear, like, how have folks supported you through that in terms of friends and family and your school?
Okay, so I'm lucky that I'm not born in a conservative family, so it was not really difficult for me to so my family and we believe in open discussions, so it's like it was very easy to bring up the entire topic. And even though it took time and efforts to make them understand the entire thing, but it was quicker than what I expected, and everyone in my family was supportive about it because they feel this is something we need to start normalizing in the society. And my friends, so we are in the same school, and since I guess since class 5, we're all like taught about all the like the gender. And even though, like she said, we might not know the meaning in depth, but we have in our school we have gender neutral libraries. So it's a very inclusive and safe campus. So my friends and we are all brought up in a similar way at school, and in fact in families. So it was pretty easy to me.
It's nice to have that support. I think, again, we've touched on this a couple of times, but having that circle of support is extremely important. And thinking about changing perspectives, Sri, I know you're a few years further in your journey here, but have you seen the attitude towards the LGBT plus community sort of shift or change with Gen Z specifically? And I guess if you have, either for the positive or negative, what do you think some of those causes are?
I think the thing is that if you look at both positive, the reason for the both positive and negative change is the same thing, the kind of representation that is there out there in the media and social media, talking and digital content. Like that is a common cause for both having a positive reaction towards the community and negative reaction towards the community. I think it is changing because, like already mentioned a few times in the conversation, that because of the kind of information that we're getting nowadays, people are changing. People are thinking more about the topic and forming their own opinions first. But yeah, some people, when you look at that, they're saying that, okay, it's for the positive side, that they're supportive of it. Especially in my generation, I'm happy to say, at the same time that I'm happy to say that there are people who are, supportive of the community, are strong allies of the community, and will do everything for the community. At the same time, there are people whom I know my age group and, brought up the same way as I was, who don't think that same way, like who and I understand that they don't they don't get what the community means, or they don't understand the terms of the community, but some of them straight up don't they don't understand the depth of what they're saying or what they're doing, or the fact that they think that it's not something natural. I have met people like that, who and younger than me too. I'm not just saying that people who are older than me have that kind of a notion. People who are younger than me, who have had better opportunities than me at some point of time, when you see their reactions towards these topics, it is there. The perspective is changing. What the biggest thing that I've noticed is that the older generations at a time when they ignore the topic, at least our generation is talking about it.
Yeah.
Be it positive or negative. And I mean, it's a double-sided coin, but
of course,
yeah, we are addressing the topic. It's not being shooed away into a corner like as if it doesn't exist. People are acknowledging it, but yeah, it's not always enough.
Yeah, and I think I think it all is sort of interconnected as well, right? Because I think part of the reason people are willing to have that conversation now is because they're forced with the representation, right?
Yeah.
And so we start seeing queer identified folks in social media or on TV or what have you, and so it facilitates that conversation. It is a bridge to for generational conversations or from different perspectives. So yeah, I absolutely understand that. One of the things that you also said was, which I guess I hadn't thought about, is the change for better or worse is really the same cause, which is interesting to think about how, and I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts on like why people sort of lean one way or the other, right? Why the same exposure to something would cause somebody to have a negative reaction versus a positive reaction, because I agree. I think that's probably the case.
Like if I have to speak from my country's point of view, like in the families that Indian families at the core, a lot of families like Shaina said, or for mine, for example, they're more open. They're more, even if like when I told my mom, she still doesn't understand a lot of about the community, things about the community, but at the same time, she's supportive of it.
Okay.
It's not like she doesn't understand it, so it's wrong. She doesn't understand it, but she realizes that, whatever it is my identity, and she's fine with it. But at the same time, there are a lot of families. I think the reason the way we look at things is because the way we are brought up in our families, the kind of conversations that we have had, heard in the past from our families. Even the from the community, the major topic that is most commonly talked about is probably transgender people, transgender community, the conversation about transgender community. So as kids itself, you hear things in your elders speaking that is not very favored towards trans community. So you grow up with that, and then you keep hearing that those things for years on and years on. That they're not, even if they're not bad, you might not hear bad things about them. But at the same time, you hear things that don't want you to, that makes you not want to approach them. That's the kind of things you hear at least most of the houses. I'm not saying everywhere it happens, but a lot of houses are like that. A lot of conversations involved around the fact. So after a point of time, you see the representation on TV, and it doesn't matter. Like whatever you see, your judgment is already clouded to a point where you think that maybe you don't want to approach them. It's not like you're not friend. You just think that they're not friendly enough for you to approach them. And this is just an example that I'm just an example. So this is what happens, because
Mhm.
you constantly hear it, like, because a good part for the younger generation now, because our generation is now talking about it and talking mostly good things. I hope that is influencing the younger generation to think that okay, fine, not everything that is not what our parents think is wrong is wrong. There are
Yep.
things that they misunderstand, and there are things that needs to be changed. So yeah, I think that is one of the biggest reasons, the way we are brought up, the way our elders have conversations around children. I think that
Okay.
that dictates a lot.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, that is generational differences. And I know that you were sort of speaking to your country specifically, but I think that translates here as well, right? There tend to be more conservative elders, right, in older generations, and as sort of the next generation takes over, if you will, I'm hopeful that perspectives change in that way.
Hopefully, yeah.
Um, well, and thinking about that, then Shaina, excuse me, in like your experience, I know that you said you're really lucky to have sort of a school that is inclusive and open and supportive of having these conversations and having gender neutral spaces and things like that. Do you think that your school is an exception in terms of like inclusivity, at least in your region specifically, or yeah, I would be curious to know how you're seeing things.
So my school is not like an exception, but it's definitely different because our school is the first one to start like such a campaign. And it's not just the Breaking Barriers campaign. There are like many campaigns, human right campaigns, which focus towards other communities and aspects. So my school in a specific gives every student and staff the right to speech and expression, and we can walk into the principal's room and have a conversation and speak our minds out. And that is something I believe is not in every school, because our management, they are very supportive about everything. And yeah, and we have the right to make our choices and decisions. So as I said, open discussions is a way of life for us. We're taught to be unbiased, non-judgmental, empathetic, respectful, and all of these values, they are instilled in us from a very young age. So this allows us to grow as confident and inclusive individuals, to be empathetic towards everyone. And what makes my school different is how inclusive the campus is, as I said, about the gender neutral libraries. And yeah, and we have counselors in place who look after our mental health. And we can talk to them about, if we're getting bullied or anything. And we have strict school policies, so it helps each of us feel safe, because at the end of the day, we know that we have someone to talk to, and the ones who are doing something wrong, they're getting punished for it. And another thing which makes my school different is that over the years we have been so people reach out to us to conduct sessions and workshops in their school for like gender and gender identity, sexual orientations about it. And yeah, and even
so your school is setting an example for others.
And
Okay.
it's not just school, it's actually like we colleges or workplaces, they reach out to us. But one thing I feel is that in many situations, students from different schools, they want us, to conduct sessions, but their management does not allow, give us the authority to proceed with it. So that is one pushback. And like conducting sessions in government schools, that is another pushback. But otherwise, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like there are a couple of challenges. Also, you mentioned being able to just sort of walk into your principal's office and have an open conversation. And I just had flashbacks to my school days, and I don't necessarily know if I would have had the same courage to do that. So definitely give you some credit for, and also like the school credit for being able to have such an inclusive and open sort of platform there. Okay. And thinking about then support systems and support networks, I know, Sri, you are one of the driving members or founding members, correct me here, of Anchor, which is the LGBT plus collective at �々𝘴𝘦𝘢𝘴𝘰𝘠𝘪𝘢𝘴. And so can you tell me a bit more about that, and you're really creating that inclusive environment for the community?
Sure. Yes. So I actually didn't found Anchor. Anchor was founded in �々𝘴𝘦𝘢𝘴𝘰𝘠𝘪𝘢 a long time back. But like I mentioned earlier, at that point of time, homosexuality was decriminalized in our country. So it was not possible for us, for the people from the community to come out and talk about it as freely as we can now. So at that time, Anchor was sort of like a group that was only exclusively known to the people from the community. Only those in the community would know who were in Anchor. It was just a space for the people from the community to come and talk about their problems that they're facing in the campus, or just talk about their issues. But since I joined campus at that time, it had already been decriminalized, and it was fine to talk about it. So actually, it started in a way that we had a college project, and where me and a couple of one of my friends, we started working on the community conversation. We want to study how life on the campus is for a person from the community. That is how we started going on about it. And we conducted surveys and talked to a lot of people. So it was an anonymous survey. So a lot of people came out, a lot of people from the community talked about their experiences and all of that. So, and through that is when we realized that there used to be a community like this, that Anchor used to exist. But of course, under the shadows, it was not out and open. So, and it had long been discontinued because of people passing out. People, once the group passed out, there was nobody else to, keep it going. So it had kind of died down. There's not a lot of people working on the group. So once we had that kind of an opportunity, we, a few of us, we started, we restarted it on social media. So by that time, pandemic had hit, and, we were all at homes. So what we could do was, we started it online through social media. We created the page. So what we basically aimed through at that time was to start awareness, just to make sure that students from our campuses knew that there was a safe space where they could come and talk to us. They had people who had gone through similar experiences, had gone through similar journeys, Basically, there are a set of people, if you're from the community, and because young students come to the college, like 16, 17-year-olds were students were joining the campus. So we aim to be a safe space for them, so that when they come out, they can talk to somebody without even telling us their names or anything. That was not required. They could just come and tell us what problems they were facing, and we tried to help them. So that is what our initial agenda of Anchor was. And after that, we grew to a point where, we started having live sessions with people from the community. We brought people from the community to come and talk to the students on live, on social media. They would talk about, we got a lawyer who, talked about the laws that affect the community. We had people from different sections of the community itself who talked about what it means to be, say gay or say trans, being a trans woman, what it means to be a lesbian woman, or what, all of those different things. So we had different people come and talk about it. So yeah, that is basically what we are trying to do even now as Anchor. Initially to be a safe space, and other than that, creating, if you're not from the community, then creating allies in our main agenda is for our campus to be an ally to the community.
Yeah, that's amazing, and creating those safe spaces is awesome, and I'm starting to sort of pull together some things here in terms of just listening to the both of you and your journeys, and one sort of the way in which social media and this representation has really played a role. Shaina, I know you talked about the 21 Days Ally Challenge, and you've been able to have a massive undertaking there, mobilizing over 200 of your friends and family members to sort of participate in this challenge. But you're also one of the winners, and the only student sort of the only student in the winners sort of circled there. So I would love to hear about your motivations for doing that, learning a little bit more about what the challenge actually is, for anyone sort of listening who doesn't know, and just what that meant to you, I guess.
So the challenge was organized by the Pride Circle, and as I said, I got into it and everything because of my school. It was a challenge with the time period of 21 days, wherein every day we got a certain challenge. So one day we're watching a movie and the other day we are learning about the hardships they're going through, so that ways. And yeah, it was basically to self-educate ourselves, and then we had a referral code, which we had a link which we had to get signed from others, and that is, so like I got it signed from almost 200 people, and that is, so that was to mobilize them, and they could either participate or just go through all there were links provided over there for the movies or for the certain information about the community. And yeah, so honestly, it was obviously really nice to win and be in the top 3 globally, but winning was never my concern. It was more like I felt more accomplished and happier knowing that I could sensitize about 200 people. And the thing which made me the most proud was I could change my grandparents' point of view and perspective towards the entire community, because they have a conservative background, so it was difficult for them to really grasp all the all the various genders and sexualities, but in the end it was all worth it, because they really and then they further sensitized their friends and relatives. And so in that age group, about the 70-80-year-old age group, I was able to create a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge. And thinking about the influence, even just having the exposure, even exposure to from you providing this link to them, I'm sure that developed into conversations beyond with others as well. So I love that. I think that's awesome. As we look, I think we're running a little close to time here, but just thinking about as we, we've talked a lot about what allyship means, but I would love to hear from both of you, just something that you think the listeners can do, and maybe Shaina, with you specifically, maybe something particularly that parents can do, that they can take and make just more of a difference, make a positive difference, a change, in support of allyship or the community. Shaina, I'll start with you.
Okay, so referring to the parents here, according to me, the smallest thing, so their upbringing is different from ours. We have everything, every facility, and we are more empowered. But I feel that the smallest thing our parents can do is educate themselves a little about like the community and overall about the human rights, and be more accepting and supportive. If we're coming out, for instance, if I'm coming out to as bi or lesbian or anything to my parents, they should not like pass a weird comment about it. They should just be supportive, and because knowing that my family is supportive about my decision would um, make me feel more, that's something which should be normalized. And even though we as Gen Z, we are putting efforts to normalize it. Many of my friends who have came out to their parents, they did not have a positive reaction towards it, and that is something which I feel shouldn't be there, because again, it's a very normal thing to love anyone, love who you want to, and that way. So be more accepting and accepting and supportive about it, and just educate yourself.
Absolutely. Education is key. I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's great. Absolutely. Shri?
Like picking up from what Shaina said, like as somebody who has actually gone through that thing of coming out to your parents and talking to them about your own changing sexuality, I think it is very important to for the parent to be not dismissive about what their child is trying to tell them. It's okay if you don't have that information. It's okay if you don't understand what the child is saying, because more often than not, they'll be happy to help you. Like, if you are confused about what your child is saying, you can absolutely ask your kid. I'm sure they'll be happy to explain it to you or tell you how and how things work. And I think so the key is to not be dismissive, and to at least accept the fact, like what the child is saying is not some nonsense or something. Like what they're saying is very important for them. So if because a parent support is very important. The reason I'm confident about my sexuality today is because of the support of my family. Because they are okay with it is why I'm so fine with it or talking about it, or even able to help others. And at the same time, from our generation, I think it is important for us to be have a little bit of tolerance, because we, as a generation, I think, because of the kind of excess information that we have access to, I think we think very less when we see something, be it representation. If you see some kind of representation, we don't stop to think about what, even when you're saying some things or when you're watching something, passing comments, we don't think about it. Like, we are not thinking about the repercussions of, what we are saying or what we are watching. So maybe that, because at least the older part, like the older part of Gen Z population, we are old enough to understand and, to realize what is right and wrong. So maybe having a grasp on that, I think that would go a long way in helping the community in the longer run.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's fantastic hearing both of your stories and all of the work that you're doing. So thank you from that perspective. As a millennial, I will continue to have the conversations, listen to the future leaders that we have here, and just be open to those conversations. So I appreciate your time. I'll close just by saying, well, I guess I should say thank you again to both of you, and thanks to Pride Circle for having us, allowing us to have this meaningful conversation. And to quote Shaina, I really love the idea of allyship in whatever form it takes, of being available as a human being. I love that. So thank you very much, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.